Hi, I'm Professor Andy Frank, CTO of Efficient Drivetrains, where we develop cutting-edge technologies for all classes of plug-in hybrid vehicles. I built the first modern plug-in hybrid back in the 1970s, and I've devoted my career ever since to inventing vehicles and grid technology solutions that can reduce the world's dependence on fossil fuels. It's taken decades, but technology, science, and policy have finally converged so that commercialization of our technology is now a reality. I'm sorry I can't be there today because Singapore, as one of the region's foremost thought leaders, is poised to lead the rest of the region to energy independence and creating a zero carbon emission future. The timing for this conference couldn't be better, as the time for all of you to act is now. But where do we begin? This is a rather complicated area that involves much more than just the car companies. Those of you in local policy development, government funding, and especially the utility decision makers have a role to play in supporting the right solution. If we look at the main technologies that exist today, what should you be asking in order to understand the implications each one will have on both society and your grid? I'd like to spend a few minutes with you today briefly exploring these questions. Each of today's four main solutions has a valid place in answering the call to action, whether it is a hybrid, an all-battery electric vehicle, a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, or an improved, more efficient combustion engine. We need to use every means available to stem the tide of dependence on imported oil and gas and increasing carbon emissions. But when we talk about transitioning whole societies off of oil, we must take into consideration that large-scale new technology adoption rates can only be achieved with technology that utilizes the current energy distribution infrastructure to minimize public sector costs, and with vehicles that don't overly inconvenience society as a whole. Let's take a closer look. We still face high hurdles. Petroleum vehicles and coal and natural gas-powered electric grids create 80% of the world's carbon emissions. We thought ethanol and hydrogen were going to fuel our futures, but ethanol creation has raised food prices and threatened the food supply, while hydrogen is costly in generation as well as in its distribution because it requires a whole new delivery infrastructure. Unless there is an almost miraculous technological leap of some kind, we must rely on current infrastructure and technologies to move over time to our goal of being all electric. But right now, I'm afraid, the battery technology and resources to make them are just not currently available, which means leapfrogging isn't a real possibility. Now let's look at the available technology and energy infrastructure, battery electrics and hybrid vehicles. The characteristics of batteries is that it requires higher power electricity, long recharge times, special power distribution system, high cost for the batteries, and high vehicle costs. And there are range issues. Hybrid electric vehicles use 20% less fuel than conventional cars, but they're not converted to biofuels at this time. If they were, they would be cutting into the food supply. They currently use conventional gasoline. The performance is good, but they cannot use electricity from the grid. They could use alternative liquid fuel, but they cannot be used to support the grid. The plug-in hybrid vehicle is basically a hybrid vehicle that has more batteries and a smaller gasoline engine. What that means is that the plug-in hybrid vehicle is actually more efficient than a hybrid vehicle in reducing gasoline, but at the same time, it has enough batteries that allows you to use energy directly from the grid. It doesn't require high power infrastructure for charging. Why? Because it is a dual fuel vehicle. It has both gasoline and electricity, and it will run on either one or both together. Therefore, it doesn't require the high power recharging, and it could be charged in 8 hours. The other thing about the charging is that low power charging can be done by conventional plugs that we have in our society everywhere. So the 1.5 kilowatt to 2 kilowatt outlets that we have in our society is all you need. And it may take 8 hours, but you have to remember the plug-in hybrid is parked somewhere for about 20 hours a day because nobody uses their car more than 4 hours a day. Fundamentally, the plug-in hybrid is a marriage of battery electric vehicles and hybrid electric vehicles, taking the best of both technologies. So the plug-in hybrid, instead of using 100% electricity like the battery electric vehicles, uses 80 to 90%. This is where you got to start. You can go to all electric vehicles when new batteries, new infrastructure, everything is evolved and developed. The plug-in hybrid will have a much lower incremental cost than the battery electric vehicle. May be a little bit more expensive than the hybrid electric vehicle, but it's a small margin over a hybrid. The reason is that it requires 1/3 the batteries of the battery electric vehicle. That will give you the range required for a plug-in hybrid to displace up to 80 to 90% of the liquid fuel that you would normally use. Now, what that means really is that the liquid fuel can easily be substituted for gasoline by biofuels. At this time, the current grid must shut down 1/3 to 1/2 of its power plants at night because nobody's got their lights on. And that means 1/3 to 1/2 of the power plants are idle. The plug-in hybrid, on the other hand, can be charged during the times those power plants are shut down. When you do that, what you're doing is increasing the efficiency of power generation, electric power generation, and that higher efficiency results in much lower cost of electricity for everyone. In addition, the plug-in hybrid, if we have the proper two-way charging, where you charge the batteries when you have excess electricity from the grid, and you return electricity back to the grid when the grid needs extra electricity, will even improve the efficiency of the grid further. So the plug-in hybrid represents a way to store electric energy in our society, something that we don't have today. So not only does the plug-in hybrid give us alternative transportation, get us off oil, but at the same time, it reduces the need for additional grid resources and reduces the cost of electricity to everyone. What I've just presented you is probably the most pressing issue of our time. I hope the presentation stimulates questions, allows you to move towards further investigation, towards moving all of society towards a zero-carbon future in the shortest possible time. Thank you.